Welcome to this special deep dive from the Explainer. You know, every society is really built on this big, powerful promise of justice. But how do you actually take that promise, that idea, and turn it into something real? Today, we are going to be the architects, and we are going to deconstruct, piece by piece, the 5 massive pillars that hold up the entire Philippine criminal justice system. Think about it. Justice? It's just a word, right? An idea about fairness, about rights, about what happens when someone breaks the rules. But how do you build a machine to actually deliver it? That's what we're here to figure out. We're going to pop the hood on the Philippine criminal justice system, or PCJS, and see exactly how all the gears and levers work together. And we're not going in blind. We've got the blueprint right here. Our guide for this whole tour is this foundational lesson plan, which gives us the perfect structure, laying out the 5 core pillars of the system. So let's grab our hard hats and start building. To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to imagine something with me. A grand, enormous temple of justice. This isn't just some building, it's a massive structure, and it's being held up by 5 distinct, absolutely essential pillars. They're all interconnected, and here's the kicker. If even one of them starts to weaken or crumble, the entire temple, the very idea of justice, is at risk of coming crushing down. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this temple pillar by pillar. We'll start with the gatekeepers and law enforcement, then move to prosecution, the courts, corrections, and finally, we'll look at the very foundation of it all, the community. All right, let's step up to the main entrance. We begin with the very first pillar, law enforcement. Think of them as the gatekeepers of our temple. They are the front lines, the first point of contact between the entire justice system and you, me, and everybody else in society. So what is their job, really? At its core, the source defines them as the government body specifically created and legally mandated to enforce our laws. They are the ones who literally confront crime, who maintain social order, and who kick off the entire justice process. Nothing happens until they act. Now, this first pillar isn't just one solid block of stone. Oh no, it's way more complex. It's a composite made up of several specialized agencies. Each one is carved with a very unique purpose. It's like having a team of highly trained guards at the temple gate, and each one is watching for a different kind of threat. First up, we've got the one everybody recognizes, the Philippine National Police, or the PNP. They are, without a doubt, the most visible face of law enforcement. If this whole pillar is the front line, then the PNP are the foot soldiers, patrolling that line day in and day out. And let me tell you, the PNP's to-do list is huge. It's not just about chasing bad guys and making arrests, not by a long shot. They're also administrators. They're responsible for everything from issuing you a license for a firearm to supervising the security guards at your local mall. It really shows you they have this dual role. They're both protectors and regulators. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the NBI. If the PNP are the uniformed patrols walking the beat, think of the NBI as the highly specialized consulting detectives for the state. They're the ones called in for the really tough, complex, or high-profile cases. And you know, the NBI didn't just exter out of thin air. It grew. It evolved over more than a decade, starting as a small division and eventually becoming the powerhouse investigative body it is today. This history tells us that as the country grew, it recognized the need for a dedicated, expert-level national detective agency. Now, our source says the NBI serves warrants and subpoenas. You hear these words all the time in movies, but what's the actual difference? Well, a warrant is like a physical key, handed down from a judge. It gives law enforcement the power to unlock something that's normally protected, like your liberty or your home. A subpoena, on the other hand, is a command. It's a legally binding order to show up or hand something over. It's not an invitation you can refuse. So, beyond the high-stakes investigations, the NBI has 2 other jobs that affect almost everyone. First, they are the National Clearinghouse for Criminal Records. That's the NBI clearance you need for a job. It's a vital integrity check for the whole country. And second, they run the country's scientific crime lab, providing the forensic backbone, the DNA tests, the ballistics, for the entire justice system. Next up, the PDEA. This is a much newer, much more specialized agency. It was created for one reason and one reason only, to consolidate the government's fight against illegal drugs. Think of them as a single, powerful spearhead designed to enforce the nation's drug laws with laser focus. So, with all this power, who makes sure the PNP is actually doing its job right? Who polices the police? Well, that's NAPLCOM. They aren't an enforcement agency themselves. They're an oversight body, like a command center or an internal affairs department that ensures the PNP stays accountable to the people. And this brings us to an absolutely critical point from our source. The power to arrest someone, to take away their liberty, is immense. It's one of the greatest powers the state has. Because of that, law enforcement must always operate with a deep respect for human dignity and the presumption of innocence. This isn't just a nice idea. It is the moral bedrock of this entire pillar. Okay, so an arrest has been made. The gatekeepers have done their job. The case is now handed off, moving to the second pillar, prosecution. This is where the raw information from an investigation is taken, evaluated, and forged into a formal legal argument against the person who was arrested. And again, this pillar isn't just one office. It's a system with three really important players, each with a very specific job to do in building or defending against the state's case. You've got the NPS, the PAO, and the Ombudsman. The National Prosecution Service, or NPS, is the next step. They take all the files from the police or the NBI, and they make a crucial decision. Is there actually enough evidence here to charge someone with a crime? In a way, they're the state's official storytellers, building a clear, coherent narrative of what happened to present to the court. But hold on, what if you're the one being accused, and you don't have the money for a lawyer? Does that mean you're on your own? Absolutely not. That's where the PAO comes in. As the government's free legal aid office, it's there to make sure justice isn't just for the wealthy. It ensures that poverty is never a barrier to getting a proper defense. And finally, there's a really special player in this pillar, the Office of the Ombudsman. This office is the public's watchdog over its own government. It has the unique and powerful job of investigating and prosecuting public officials for wrongdoing. It's a vital check against corruption and abuse of power. And now we arrive at the very heart of our temple. We're entering the central chamber, the third pillar, the courts. This is the sanctum. This is where evidence is weighed, where arguments are heard, and where legal truth is officially, finally decided. The court system isn't just one big room. It's a four-level pyramid. It starts at the bottom with first-level courts handling local cases. Then it moves up through regional and intermediate courts for bigger, more complex issues, and it all culminates at the very top, the apex, the Supreme Court, which is the final word on the law. Now, check out this table because it tells a really fascinating story. It shows the philosophy behind that pyramid. As you climb higher up the court system, the requirements for age and, crucially, legal experience get much, much stricter. This is by design, to make sure our highest courts are guided by the most experienced, seasoned legal minds in the country. The courts pillar has to be the physical embodiment of balance. It's like holding the scales of justice. On one side, it protects society by holding people accountable, but on the other, it has to fiercely protect the rights of the accused, who are, and this is key, innocent until proven guilty. And anything, especially corruption, can dangerously tilt those scales and break the entire system. So the trial is over. The verdict is in. Guilty. What happens next? Is that the end of the story? Not at all. We now move to the fourth pillar, corrections. This is the part of the system that handles punishment, but just as importantly, it's also about the rehabilitation of offenders. This pillar is really split down the middle, following two very different paths. The first is institution-based correction, which is what we all think of, confinement inside prisons and jails. But there's another path, community-based correction, which shifts the focus to supervised rehabilitation within society through things like probation and parole. Okay, here's a big one that trips people up all the time. What's the difference between Bucor and the BJMP? It's actually pretty simple. The Bureau of Corrections, or Bucor, runs the big national prisons for people who have already been convicted and are serving long sentences. The BJMP runs local jails, mostly for detainees who's still awaiting or undergoing their trial. So a simple way to remember it, Bucor is for convicts, BJMP is for the accused. Now, that community-based path is driven by two key agencies. You have the Parole and Probation Administration, or PPA. They're the hands-on supervisors, the coaches, helping people on probation or parole get back on their feet. Then you have the Board of Pardons and Parole, the BPP. They're the decision-makers who determine who qualifies for that second chance in the first place. And our source is crystal clear on this point. When a person is incarcerated, they lose their right to liberty, yes, but they do not lose their right to human dignity. So issues like severe overcrowding, lack of resources, or abuse, these are not just logistical problems. They are fundamental violations of human rights that happen inside the temple of justice itself. We have now arrived at our final pillar, and according to our source material, this is the most important one of all. You see, the community isn't just another column holding up the roof. No, it is the very foundation upon which the entire temple of justice is built. This quote says it all. This is the crucial takeaway. The justice system isn't some separate machine operating in a vacuum. It's a performance, a drama that unfolds on the stage of the community. It's powered by the community, it's staffed by the community, and ultimately it is accountable to the community. And this pillar includes huge institutions like the DSWD and the DILG. Why? Because by addressing poverty, by ensuring good local governance, by strengthening the social fabric, their work helps to prevent crime before it even has a chance to happen. A strong foundation makes the other pillars' job so much easier. A key player here is the Commission on Human Rights, the CHR. It's mandated by the Constitution to be the people's guardian. Think of it as an independent watchdog, the conscience of the system, that investigates violations and makes sure the government is held to account for protecting our rights. So if the community is the foundation, any crack in that foundation threatens the whole temple. Things like corruption, rampant misinformation, or cutting budgets for social services, these aren't just political issues. They are actions that weaken the very foundation of justice and compromise the human rights of every single one of us. So, we've done it. We've built our temple. We've examined all 5 of its pillars: law enforcement, prosecution, the courts, corrections, and the all-important foundation of the community. And that leaves us with one final big question. If the system is truly built on the community, doesn't that make every single one of us an architect responsible for its strength or its weakness? It's a powerful thought because it reminds us that this grand, complex system is and always will be a reflection of us.